Hello everybody, welcome back to another one of Leeds Helpful Tips live streams. Thanks for joining us today. Today's live stream is going all about Zen software and specifically some tips about doing easy annotations and then saving those pictures with annotations on them. So hopefully this tutorial, or well, it's not really a tutorial, hopefully this live stream can be helpful. Shouldn't take too long and you can add it to your repertoire. A couple things before we begin is Leeds Helpful Tips live streams are a live stream program that we're putting together this year, really just to kind of go over our instruments and provide helpful, useful information to our customers. Every week is a different topic. This week it's all about the Zen software on the LCT, or I'm sorry, the Trace Z and also the Discovery Z, as you can see behind me. But every other week it can be sometimes about the LCT or sometimes our Leeds Spectral Vision System. If you have anything that you would like us to cover or add a topic or go more in depth, please feel free to email me at jkurth@leedsmicro.com and we'll be sure to add it to our list. Another quick thing before we dive into the Zen software is that this is a live stream, so things do happen and can happen. So if the power goes out or I lose signal, please bear with me and I'll try to get it back. Another thing that's nice to point out about YouTube is that if you are comfortable with it and have a Google account, you can actually log in and type in any questions that you'd like right in, I think it's the right-hand side. So as we're going over things, if I say something and you're like, wait, maybe could you go in a little more depth on that, please feel free to type in your question. I'll be looking at the chat as much as I can, and when I see it, I'll definitely answer it. We do have a little bit of a delay between what I see and what you see, so if the question doesn't get immediately answered, please bear with me, and I'll make sure to check every once in a while. All right, so let's dive into it. Zen software. Zen is a beast. We're talking specifically about Zen 3.1 Blue Edition. And the reason we're making this quick video or quick live stream is because we've had people come to us with suggestions or questions over the years about, hey, Jake, how do you make it easier to do annotations and then just get those annotations on the picture and then move through casework? So I have the software open. I'm going to go ahead and switch over. Hopefully everything works. We're trying it. We have a new camera set up, so I'm pretty excited. Hopefully the image is pretty good for you guys. So here's our software. So this is what Zen 3.1 Blue Edition looks like. Basically, the Zeiss, this is actually the Zen Lite version. Zeiss did a really cool thing in that they made the Zen Lite version of their software free and that it comes with their cameras. If you have a Discovery Z system, what you'll actually be using, it's the exact same interface if you're using Zen Blue, but it would be considered something called Zen Pro. We essentially have two versions of Zen software that we sell, or Zeiss software that we sell at Zen. We sell the Zen Pro or Zen Blue, which is kind of this flavor that we're working with today, and we also sell another version called Zen Core. And depending on your lab, depending on when we were working with you in determining what would work best for your system, you'll be quoted either the Zen Core or Zen Pro, or you'll just be getting the Zen Lite. A lot of topics, but long story short, this is all about Zen Blue 3.1 today. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to have your live image. So let's bring that up. And it's going to bear with me for a second while the camera turns on and connects. Like I said, it's running my laptop. And so this is just a representative live image. And I'm just going to go ahead. I was a little afraid of that. So it stopped the live image because my laptop just doesn't have enough oomph to get through the streaming setup along with the Zen software. But that's OK, because I'm just going to go ahead and take a picture. So I'm going to hit the snap button over here, and it's just going to take a picture from the camera. So once we have this picture, we have a couple ways we can come in and start doing annotations. You can go in, here's your graphics controls, and you can come in and you can click this, and you can draw an arrow. Let's go ahead and draw an arrow to this hair sample. We can come in, we can maybe draw a little text box. Bring a text box up here, call this case 1, 2, 3 on the left side. What I'm going to do is instead go ahead and just draw another text box. So you have that ability. I think I could probably just hit Control V. Yeah, there it is. So you can copy text boxes, you can paste text boxes, you can move things around. With all of the graphical elements, and I suspect a lot of this will be familiar for you. What I'm going to show next is how you can make a template out of this, actually. Going back to the graphical elements, a lot of the Zeiss graphical elements, the annotations, the things you can make, they're pretty straightforward. Anytime you draw something, for example, this line, or put a text box down, you can simply right-click on the annotation, and then you'll see that there's this Format Graphical Elements button below. And if you click on that, it'll bring up a pop-up window that asks you some things. How do you want it set? Something I always recommend is any annotation that you're making, I recommend that you always have the line thickness to be at least 3 to 5 to 8 pixels thick. And the reason you want it kind of thick like that is because when you go to burn in all of your annotations, if it's only 1 pixel thick, which is the default setting, what'll happen is the image, if you think about it on your screen, gets reduced in size just to show on your screen. And so if you were to burn in a 1 pixel thick line, what you'd see is when the graphics get burned into that image, if you don't blow up the image and zoom in, you actually might lose your line. You might not show up. So what I always recommend doing is setting it to at least 3 to 8 to 5 pixels thick, just so you can really see those good lines. Again, you can come in, you can change font. This is an arrow, so it doesn't have any font with it. And you can also set as a global default. And I suggest doing that. When you draw your lines, when you make your text boxes, and you find a color or text size or pixel size that works for you, I recommend just setting that as a global default. Because now any other annotation that you add to this picture is going to keep doing the exact same thing. Pretty straightforward. So those are pretty common annotations. There are some other ways to do it too. There's this little, you can barely see it, but there's this little up arrow at the bottom. And if you click it, it'll shrink down the image you're working on and bring up this cool little toolbar on below. You can click Graphics, and then you're going to have graphic settings that you commonly use. So like text boxes, info stamps, things like that. More on this in a second. What you'll see is every time I come in and draw an annotation, let's just go ahead and put a rectangle. Every time I come in and put an annotation, you're going to see that there's, in the graphics section, you're going to see it tracks every single annotation. And that's how you can select them instead of having to click on the screen. And you can also format these annotations directly from here by clicking this little format button. OK, now for something pretty cool. I'm going to get rid of that rectangle. I just selected hit delete. So something that's pretty neat that you can do in the Zen software is you have another graphical tool, and it's this, there's other things here like scale bar. Let's throw in the scale bar so you can see there's a scale bar down here. You'll see how it's really small right now. So what I'm going to do is click on it, right click on it. We're going to go to Format Graphic Elements. I'm going to change my line thickness to, let's go ahead with 5 thickness. My font size, let's just boost that up to 80. And then I'm going to set as a global default. So that's pretty nice. But what I really wanted to show you is if you go here and go to Graphics, you're going to see this tool called Frequent Annotations. And I think the reason it's called Frequent Annotations is it's not annotations you've been using frequently. What it is it's annotations that you might want to use frequently, if that makes any sense. And so what's kind of cool is frequent annotations, what they do is it pulls the metadata out of the picture. So whatever, if you're on a trace Z, every time you take a picture and you've set the objective, and you've set the objective in the software, it'll record what objective it was at when it captured that picture. And that's stored in part of the metadata of the image. And so these frequent annotations actually are just tools that pull information from that metadata and can place it directly on your image. So let's go ahead and do it. So I'm going to go ahead to Frequent Annotation. We're going to go over here and go to, we're not really going to use relative time. We don't really need acquisition time, not for our purposes or application. So we're going to go ahead and click More. And it's going to pull up another pop-up. and it's actually on my second monitor, so let's just bring that down. And so here's all of our metadata. This is a little overwhelming because the Zen software, like I said, is kind of a beast. It tracks everything. But what we're really interested in is just for this particular microscope in this example, let's just pull the objective. So I'm going to go in here and type in objective in the search. And you'll see it's automatically filling and searching as I type it in. And here's our objective. For those who are using our discovery microscope, so really our firearm and tool marks comparison microscope, what you're going to be more interested in than versus the Trace Z, you're going to be more interested in something called the Optivar, which is essentially the zoom setting. So where the Trace Z, people want to see their magnification, they're really all about that objective. For the Discovery and Discovery Z, you're going to be looking for the Optivar in the metadata. So let's go ahead and choose objective. I'm going to click OK. And you'll see, you can barely see it, it's put a teeny tiny little annotation all the way up in my left corner. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on it, and we're going to go to Format Graphical Elements. And I'm going to change the font size from that 25. We're going to change that up to 80. Pick 80 point. And we don't need a line size because it's just text. I'm going to set as global default. Hit OK or hit close. And now you can see I have this little yellow text that says 2.0x. And that's pulling the objective from the metadata. So that's pretty slick. And you can use that, ad nauseum. There's other things in this graphic, and I suggest, or in the frequent annotations, and I suggest taking a look at it yourself. But you can pull up things such as, username. So let's pull that in. And I think it's because I'm logged in as a general user, it's not really showing, but you can pull in username, you can pull in date, you can pull in acquisition. Essentially anything that's in this little info tab on the left-hand side, if I click on that, it shows the metadata. You can pull that information and put it directly on your picture. Okay, let's go back. So, great. You're like, great, wonderful. I can draw these annotations. I can pull this metadata in. I can put it on my picture. But that's kind of a lot of work. That means every single time you take a picture, you have to go navigate around and put these annotations in. But that's where this helpful tip comes in. I've got a cool trick for you. And the cool thing is, with the Zen Blue software, you can actually make all of this as a template. You can save this layout where I have a text box here, what it says there, text box here, arrows, all of it. And then you can load this template on every single picture you capture. And the metadata, if you have any of this automatic metadata text, that will also update on your newly captured pictures. So the way you do this is if you go down, you want to make sure, so I'm just going to minimize it again. So this is our default live, screening, working with my picture. We want to hit this little up arrow to show these toolbars, these imaging toolbars. And then what you're going to see at the very bottom, at the Annotations and Measurements window, you're going to see this little Save button. And so if you save this, this is saving all of these graphic components, or these annotations, as a template. And so we can come in and let's label this. You can see I've done a couple tests for some of our customers in the past. We're going to call this Jake Live Stream Test. I'm going to try to spell stream correctly. And so that's it. And so now, whenever I take a picture, so let's just go ahead and hit the snap button again. Instead of having to come in and draw all these annotations, all these graphical elements every single time, all I need to do is navigate down to my Load Graphical Elements button, down in these Annotations and Measurements. Click on that. Choose Jake Livestream Test, which is what I named it. Click Open. And it immediately pops all that information directly on the screen. I didn't change my magnification in the software. The way you do that is with the microscope components. This is my objective. This is where I haven't modified this list, but this is where you'd have really 4 objectives, and you choose which objective you're working with. But yeah, that's essentially it. But I'm going to show you one last thing. Hopefully this annotations tip helps you quickly move through putting information on your pictures, pulling metadata information, putting it on your picture so it's displayed that other people can easily see. What I'm going to show you next is how to quickly save this picture with all this annotation information burned into it. So there's a couple ways you can do this. One is you can just go straight up here and go to File, Export, Import, and then you have to, well actually what you first have to do is you have to go to Graphics, you'd have to go to Burn in Annotations. What that does is that takes all these annotations right now that we can edit and permanently makes them part of the picture. Otherwise, when you were to export it, you wouldn't see these lines, you wouldn't see any of our annotations. So the first step is always to burn in. You could do that, and then you'd have to go over to File, and then you'd have to go to Export, Import, and then you have to click through several different menus in order to do it. You can do that. And I think that's the way most people do it. But there's an easier and faster way that I've learned how to do this. And that's what's using this Processing tab right over here. So we have our Camera tab right here, and then we have this little Processing tab. So if we click on our Processing tab, it's going to bring us over to this window. And what we're going to do is we're going to open up our method, and we're going to choose Export Import. And we're going to choose Image Export. So what we're doing is we're setting it up to spit out the export. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go over to Method Parameters. And this is where you choose your file type. So if you wanted to change this from JPEG, if you wanted to have this, a lot of labs or some labs require everything to be saved in a lossless format, so that would be TIFF. So you can use TIFF, and then you can name it however you'd like, and then you can choose the directory it exports to. What's kind of cool about this is, let's say you're working a case and you're using a specific folder someplace on your network or on your computer. You can just direct everything to go here. And then you can come down. We're going to call this test 1, 2, 3. I'm actually going to go ahead and choose a different folder. Let's go ahead and choose, I made one specifically for this, test export. And we're just going to go into this folder. And so now, when I hit apply, it's going to go ahead and it's going to merge everything together. It's going to export it. It's going to name it how I wanted it to be named. And it's going to put it directly in that folder. And then I could even move over to my next one and do the same thing. So we could call this test export 2, merge, apply, or burn in information, apply, and then save. And so now we can actually just navigate right over there. And what you'll see is here's our test 1, 2, 3, test export 2, and we can actually just open it. All right, so then this is our TIFF that then we can save, we can email, we can do anything we'd want to with it. That's essentially all I got today. Hopefully this helps you with as you're using our products in your casework, trying to get pictures on things, trying to quickly move through, getting annotation information on it, getting the objective, getting the zoom or the Optivar setting from a Discovery or Discovery Z on your picture. So then you can just look at it and say, hey, I was at 43x. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me at jkurth@leedsmicro.com. And yeah, until next time, thanks for watching.